listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Hey, welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. This show is going to be aired on Friday, August 24th, year of our Lord 2018. You are listening to a Gen Pop Media production.
So what do you guys think about the protocols so far?
They've been really interesting, man.
Yeah, those are
for those of you, we had to take a little break and focus on some other things, but now we plan on being back on a regular basis. We've got a new format for our video broadcasts, so we're hoping that's going to tighten things up a ton. But the last couple shows that we did were the first two shows on the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which is, it's kind of like the Pike Letter. You know, this is something that came out a long time ago, and it's supposedly, or it is, I don't know if it's been confirmed or not. It's basically the roadmap for these Zionists to take over the world. And, you know, there's some stuff in there, you know, you can look at it and go, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. But the thing is no matter whether it's legitimate or not, it was written at the very latest in the early 1900s. We're talking 1918, 1919, 1920. Hooper can clarify. I believe it was 1918, the date it was first published. And, you know, the thing is the predictive nature, just like the Albert Pike Letter. Real or no, who knows, but we know it's 100 years old. Yeah. And the things set out, this is not something you can authenticate the fact that it's 100 years old. This is not something I wrote and got together with you and Hooper and Tony and Teresa and went, hey.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wrote this thing. Let's tell everybody it's 100 years old. No, this is authenticated.
Yeah, it's
and
old.
It predicted with alarming accuracy the events that have unfolded since it was discovered.
Yeah. But think about how evil of a person you have to be to think about, like, I don't even know what I'm going to have to eat next week, let alone tomorrow. To plan something.
Well, it's a plan.
That evil.
Oh, yeah. Well, they didn't have Monday.com back then. I mean, think about it.
Right. But I'm just saying, though, like, just to plan something that spans such a large amount of time, like, your soul is just...
Well, I mean, the whole agenda with these guys is to take everything over. So they get together a think tank, and they're like, okay, what has to happen for this to happen? I mean, you know, Dave has been in meetings. He has to move. He's moving his the shop he works at. He's been in meetings where they have planned the next several months up until the end of the year.
Sometimes years. But it's always to, you know, it's not a evil plot.
Right, it's always
to subvert humanity. I mean,
there could be some evil involved in the plot at your work, though.
But not at this level. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
This is
I'm being facetious.
To just kind of come up with that stuff, and maybe by accident, if you want to believe in that kind of stuff. It just happens that some things came to pass just about exactly as they said it would. That involve government, you know, the machine of government to make work. I guess you could believe in those kind of accidents. I guess it could be complete happenstance. It's just an awful lot of weird accidents that lead to these
well, this is in
concepts coming true. You know,
and these protocols, just like the Pike Letter, the protocols, these are not the two pieces that have this kind of predict. Now, these are a couple of the most in depth for sure, but you know there are little clues all around about the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, we went through this before with literature. If you're talking about like the predictive programming stuff,
right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that hints at things. These kind of things, though, are ultimately the strangest because of the scope, right? I mean, it's literally talking about the globe,
and
the things that It may be, a different T-shirt in Japan than it is here, but
Right.
essentially, I think at the core, you see the same stuff playing out in every culture around. I mean, it's eerie. You can't possibly go through those and not come away with the feeling like, okay, this is weird because it's so old.
But
right.
I don't. This is something I was thinking about though. Like it's kind of weird. Like, do you think that you, before you became a Christian, would have noticed things like that?
Yeah, but it would have been from a totally different worldview.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Completely, because I noticed stuff like this before.
It was noticing stuff like that made me convert to Christianity.
Yeah, fair enough. Where I always chalked it up to a different political system or a different form of government or a
Right.
different way to look at, psychology or sociology or whatever. Always some human element that you could, at the apex of everything that you could point your finger at. You've heard these conversations all the time. Well, that's socialism, or that's communism, or that's fascism, or that would be capitalism, or whatever the ism. But it actually goes even deeper than that, because that's when your worldview flops. It
Right.
totally goes upside down, because when you realize that these things that we talk about, when in your mind and in your heart, without a doubt this stuff is for real, it makes you relook at everything.
You know what, man? It's weird. It's weird that you say that. This weekend I was at Eastern Market, and I was with these my roommate and these two girls, and we were going through all the different shops. You know what I mean? And they all went. I was looking at this booth, and they went to the next booth, and I just got a weird feeling about this booth. I don't know quite how to explain it. And there was this young, kind of heavy-set blonde girl, white girl that was just selling candles, but I felt real uneasy about it, and I couldn't figure out why. So I walked up closer, and I read her banner, and it was like candles made through witchcraft that had spells attached to it, man. And it was just
Awesome, yeah.
And so I just stepped back, because I was like, I want nothing to do with this. And I was just listening to her. She was telling her that if she wants to make something come true, buy one of her candles, write it down on a piece of paper, and burn the piece of paper with that candle. And she called it manifesting. But I'm like, dude, I was like, everything that you're saying is pure evil.
Well, at least she used the right word.
Yeah. And then, but she was like giving her tips. She's like, some people think that you have to put this on the side of it, and as a candle burns down, it burns the paper. She's like, no, just burn the paper all at once. Whatever you want will come true. And like it said right on her banner that they mix spells in the candles when they make them.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
But people will play that off.
I would have played that off a year ago. I'd been
I
like,
would have been
okay.
like, all right, well, how about this? I want to F up my boss. Or what, you know what I mean? I would have took her up on it and bought a candle for I would have tried it.
Right.
If you go back far enough in time. Because I end up coming to realize that stuff's for real, too. And that's where people, they'll just kind of like poo-poo that stuff. Oh, yeah, witchcraft, whatever. She's just, well, it's no different than, I don't know, being a hippie or whatever. But actually, they may not even realize it. But what they're doing is actually very dangerous.
And you know what, man? And I hate to say this, but like when you meet those type of people, there's definitely a pattern. It almost seems like it's always disenfranchised white women that seem to just like go for that. You know what I mean? Like her, like
Witchcraft, the
yeah,
Wiccans.
Yeah, she had like 4 or 5 girls, man.
they
you
have
could
a
have
similar
traded
body
them all
type.
out. They all looked exactly, and you could just tell that like. It almost like when I looked at it, it almost felt like they were lacking love, if that makes sense. This is the best way I could describe it.
I think what you'll end up finding, I don't even know that it draws lines based on gender. I think because I used to dive into this occult stuff pretty heavy when I was young, and it was mostly dudes. At the time. I mean, there was girls around too, but it wasn't like it was only when you hear witch, you think of female, but witchcraft actually is better because it's all encompassing, right? It's any of this kind of stuff, and you start looking into it, you realize that this stuff actually works, and you can garner power from it, albeit temporary and extremely dangerous game to play, and hard to turn away from. You get deep enough in, you ain't getting out.
And if you listen to a lot of people that have been deep in it that got out, like you ask for something fun, something exciting, and you get something that seems to stay with you for a while that you did not expect.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why anytime I used to just kind of like, whatever, tarot cards and okay, but again, now you get a whole different view on stuff, and you go back and when your experience with that, it's just some lady selling candles. Now, if they were just scented candles, to make your cabin smell sweet, that's different. But being that they were witchcraft candles, I mean, you had probably a physical reaction to that.
Yeah, it just, you know what, man? I just felt uneasy. I felt like I don't know, like I want to get close to it, but I was just kind of like, it was almost like I was sneaking into my neighbor's window. You know what I mean? Like I was just real careful, just kind of like, what's going on here? Because I just didn't feel right about it, man. Like nothing about it.
How often do you sneak into your neighbor's window?
Because
if you saw my neighbor, it's a guy. No, I'm kidding.
But sometimes,
right?
Saturdays.
Right.
But it would be like, it's probably a poor comparison, but the reaction is going to be similar if you have this, what we'll call this worldview. If you saw, like, you're at some outdoor art festival and you saw, like, the ISIS booth.
Yeah.
But they're just there to reach out to the community, and they're offering art. You would look at that and go, wait, or maybe it wasn't ISIS, but it's like ISIS-like.
Right.
Jay, welcome to the camera, Jay.
Yeah.
He switched.
I'm on camera.
He just teleported. First time here on
What
the
number
show.
you got on your mic there, buddy? 5?
4. Everyone, man, I was thinking about this today, and this is probably something we shouldn't talk about, but, like, I feel like every man should get in a fight at least once in his life.
It reminds me of a line from Fight Club, the Brad Pitt movie.
Oh, yeah.
All-time classic movie.
Total
Versus
classic.
how much can you possibly know about yourself if you've never been in a fight? There's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah, there's something there.
Because if you've never been knocked out cold and woke up by your friends,
Right, like, where'd he
then,
go?
Where'd
he go?
What happened? I'm good. No, man,
Right.
you're out. You've been out. Like, unless that
right.
actually...
Yeah.
You have something. You have a lesson in life to learn if you've never been knocked off your feet out cold sleeping.
Yeah.
And that's another
I
thing,
agree.
too, man.
I agree with that.
I think that a lot of these kids nowadays, is what their problem is. They just never had to defend themselves. You know.
Well, it's
what I
good and
mean?
it's bad, okay? Because I've actually had this conversation with my wife more than once, and I just had this conversation with my son the other day. And it's good and it's bad, okay? Because what's good is that they've put a hurt on bullying, okay?
Right.
There's total bullying awareness now. The lines are just way too broad. Okay, there are things that happen that are called bullying that are in no way bullying. But what's cool is you remove the bullying part of it, and it allows them to become who they are more. But you're right.
See, I'm not advocating bullying. This is totally going to sound wrong. But being bullied is a huge part of what made me what I am.
I am thankful for every bully.
Yeah,
I've
but don't
ever...
you? Okay, so it affected who you are. I understand that, but didn't it also affect you in negative ways? Because it did me.
So would not having those lessons too.
You know what?
You can't rewind. Right, there's no way I could even effectively argue that I turned out better because I was bullied. Because I can't go back and redo it and prove.
I gotcha. That's
so
fair.
there's really no
That's
way
fair.
to know. But I just know that it definitely added to, and maybe it was negative, and I'm just naive in thinking that it's positive. But in some cases, it's positive. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're tougher. That's for sure.
I'm telling you right now,
You know-
I'm thankful for every bully I had, because otherwise I just wouldn't have known how to stand up for myself.
I see an absence, and it's always going to be one extreme or the other, right? We're never going to find the middle. Just
Right,
look at
right.
the world. It's never going to happen. As much as everyone wants it to happen, it's never going to happen. But the middle would be, some
Until
delicate,
Bernie brings us communism.
and then we'll all, then it'll be they'll just readjust what the middle is. But if you see a total absence of what we used to call pecking order, right? I mean, if you sit in the wrong seat on the bus, the only thing that makes it the wrong seat is that the kid bigger than you usually sits there,
Yep.
right?
Pretty
And he
much.
says, "You're in my seat," and then you say, "This is actually a true story. Happened to me." I said, "I looked for your name, but I didn't see it. And so he punched me in the mouth because I had cracked. I said, well, I looked for your name. I didn't see it. And he was like, oh, really? And he cracked me. This is all on the bus, by the way. Cracked me in the mouth. And he was like 2 grades older than me.
Was
So
the bus driver just like, quiet back there. Keep it down.
I don't even think the bus driver got involved because then I had
The
the
kid
only
probably would have beat up the bus driver.
well, the only recourse of action, because I was much smaller and frail than this kid, is I grabbed a pencil out of my backpack and stabbed him in the leg with it
Sweet.
on the bus.
So violent.
Well, this all went down, whatever, and then after that, like, we were totally cool. Like, I know he'll punch me in the face, and he knows that I will stab him. So now we're cool, and it was never an issue after that. In fact, I think he looked out for me a couple times. So if that whole scenario didn't take place, I may never have talked to him. So there's a couple ways to look at things, but there definitely was pecking order. I mean,
Yeah.
not that it was good or established by any democratic means or anything. It just is what it is. But he kind of erased that now. I think there's some character building elements that are going to be lacking.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it was better before or better now. I think the way, because my other daughter is going into high school, so the whole bullying thing in middle school, the way the kids approach it now is totally different. If they see somebody getting bullied or somebody who's potentially going to be bullied, handicapped or whatnot, they take them under their wing and they
Yeah.
all pitch in.
And that's cool.
And I think that's really cool. I
That
don't
aspect
know.
of it, I absolutely agree with.
I don't see a problem with that. I think that's compassionate and that's good. But the problem is when some of these kids get to be adults and they actually have to step up and do something to say, defend their wife and kids. If you engage in a slap fight because you don't know how to fight, you're going to lose, dude, and that guy is going to take whatever he came to take. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to kind of handle yourself too. And I think the problem is you get too far to the other extreme where everybody gets soft.
Absolutely agree.
You know what I mean? So I guess we just have to beat our kids up at home. That we'll pull up the
Right.
slack for the schools.
There you go.
Right?
You think
Fight
it's
club
bad-
at my
you think
house.
It's bad to
Fight club at
corporally
my house.
Punish your kids.
Bad?
Spank them.
Absolutely not.
Only if they deserve it. and
Is that
need
is it even is that illegal? By the way,
No.
Fine line. Fine line between discipline and abuse, according to the law. But I mean, if you're just spanking your kids because they had it coming, you got to do tricks, Dave. Pillow trick, the phone book trick. So you don't leave
Yeah.
marks. That's the key.
Yeah, he got
It's not a
the,
Christian show for
it's
nothing.
Got to be
people.
marked.
he got the 3-year-old the other day with the phone book in church.
Well, that way
No
you
one
can
could
use
tell.
that way you can use a bat and it doesn't leave a bruise.
Right.
It spreads out the force. It's a
Yep.
dirty cop trick. But
You're in the wrong line of work.
anyway, no, I think if you have to spank them, then absolutely spank them.
Without a doubt.
I've-
But doesn't everyone agree that there's I have no children, and but I definitely some kids just you see them out in public, one or two spankings
It would take care
that
of
would
it.
take care of everything going on. What's wrong with that kid? Him
there-
acting up like that.
There's definitely you end up drawing a line in the sand with your kids. Like with David, my 6-year-old, he knows he can only push it so far
Yeah.
because it's not going to be timeout. It's not going to be go to your
Yep.
room. It's going to be none of this stuff. It's literally going to be a hand upside the back of the head, smack, and it just regulates him. It's not hard. I'm not hurting him.
Right.
But he knows that
It's,
that's embarrassing, dude. You don't want to
It's
be,
kind of a shock.
So I only do that a couple times.
And,
now it's-
and ironically, our kids are very well behaved. I mean,
they're
blow it
fine.
away.
yeah, they're fine. He doesn't cower anymore when I get near
Yeah, I
him.
don't
he's
remember my dad spanking me, but I know they did.
Ugh.
But what I do remember is
My mom could have been
at the earliest age I can remember. I remember all he had to do was reach. He started to unbuckle his belt,
That was
and my
it.
sister. I mean,
Yeah.
we got in line immediately.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't usually like to hit my kids. Sometimes I like hitting them, but I'm kidding. No parent really wants to do that.
no.
You know
No,
what I mean? You
they-
don't really want to do it.
Of course not,
There's
dude.
maybe times when, it's a little, you get a little satisfaction from it,
the-
but you always regret
the thing
it
is,
after,
the thing
you know.
is too is if you start when they're young, when it's actually most effective, they carry that forward.
Well, we're talking about
I've literally had to
hand slaps, right? We're not talking about
right.
like,
Yeah, no, I'm talking about spank on the
Yeah.
butt, on the hand, whatever. I've literally had to spank my kid twice.
Yeah, very.
And now he sees the look. It's just like Dave said. He sees the look, and it's like when my voice starts to go up, he just stops.
It's like nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just because you
No,
have.
I'm
them.
serious.
That's a great.
We've all seen what they can do.
Yep.
And there's your example. And everyone from here on out, they're pretty much well behaved
Yeah,
as a result.
you know.
I mean, but you had to have that first one.
Yeah, and you always have to have the crazy guy that's willing to take everyone down with, us too. If you put, it's going to be us too. It's fine. And once you have those elements, you're right. Everyone just kind of operates within certain parameters. It's no different with kids. I think if you hit your kids for every little thing, it loses its effectiveness, and then it's just abuse.
Right. We call that method my childhood.
Right. When the neighbors used to be able to spank us, and then we'd get yelled
it's like
at.
the commercial's too long on TV. I'm getting the belt.
Yeah, bam.
I also remember, and maybe because my dad was a different generation, he was the Depression, World War II generation. And if a teacher would send home a note or do something that was against my parents always took the teacher's side. I mean, there wasn't
Absolutely.
even
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now what you have is parents going in to fight the teachers on behalf of...
And we wonder why.
But
you know what I'm saying? Why people turn
Because
out the
we're
way
now
they
a
do.
generation into this
It's crazy.
social... Don't get me wrong, there's merits to
Yeah,
social...
but to be fair, sometimes the teachers need
That's
to know
exactly
that.
what I was going to say.
If they're
Sometimes,
wrong,
like
fine.
nowadays,
But
it
generally
just-
speaking, I mean, anytime I got in trouble, I totally got in trouble. Like,
Yeah,
it
me
was
too.
me.
Me
dude.
too. I did.
It's 100% me.
Yeah.
And my parents treated it accordingly. I mean, there was maybe times they took issue with something the principal did or whatever, but at the end of the day, I mean, I've had to go through this once with my oldest before when she was in middle school. Breaking the rules, getting like a in-school suspension, and in-school suspension to me was completely pointless because they just sit in a room and they can nap, they can read.
Yeah.
They basically just get a day off, even though they got to go there. I wasn't having it. So I didn't go in to argue with the vice principal. I went in to take issue with the mode of punishment. And she asked me for clarification. I said, well, she's going to work. If she's being punished, which she should, she broke the rules, then I want you to put her to work. At least she can do something around here.
Yeah.
But sitting in there is
Clean up
teaching
the
her-
lunchroom.
isn't teaching her anything. Well, they had her doing files and moving boxes, and I went there to pick her up, and she's sweating, working, and actually, you know what? She said it was awesome because the day went by really quick. She wasn't even looking at the clock because she was busy the whole day, and it helped out the office. She never, ever, ever screwed up ever again. That's all it took. Instead of just being like, other kids do it. How dare you give my,
Yeah,
look, man, she broke the rules. It's, you know what I'm saying? But
it happens.
to just automatically go after the neighbor or the teacher or whoever because they're accusing your son or daughter of something is, I mean, it seems crazy to me. Crazy.
We were talking about before we get in to the protocols. Since we're on children, we were talking about something. Were you there? Yeah, you were there yesterday. You were at the office, and one of my coworkers brought up there's an 8-year-old girl in Wisconsin who walked her dog. And she gets home from walking her dog. She's just in her neighborhood, nowhere far. No big deal. About an hour after she gets home, her mom gets a phone call from the police. Ma'am, we had a report that your 8-year-old daughter was walking the dog. And the mom's like, yeah, she does that a couple times a day. And they're like, okay, ma'am, well, we're going to have to come investigate.
What?
And she's like,
Investigate what?
Well,
and
yeah,
she's like,
I'm
she's
serving
like,
asparagus and corn tonight, too. You can investigate that. I mean, what? Okay.
I mean,
yeah. So basically, the cops, when they get called, are obligated to call Child Protective Services.
Oh,
so CPS gets involved. These people have been in a 2-month legal battle to keep custody of their daughter because they allowed her to walk the dog, and a neighbor called to complain.
And she just went around the block, too.
All she did was go on the block.
Wasn't like she was 5 miles
Like
away.
she's done a million other
And
times.
it's probably a nameless neighbor, right?
Oh yeah, it's an anonymous neighbor, and the deal is like, I mean, it's so ridiculous nowadays that once they get called, they have to investigate.
Right. They can't use judgment anymore.
They can't use judgment, and so these people had to hire lawyers. They're going through the ringer, all because She walked a dog, and a neighbor was concerned.
Concerned.
Yeah, well, they were concerned. She was walking that dog.
I mean, it's like this, dude. When we were little, right, that age, we were doing a lot of dumb stuff.
Oh,
Like starting crap on fire and making explosives and doing things that 8-year-old kids shouldn't know how to do, but we were just crafty. But they would always come talk to my mom directly, like, hey, your kids are making parachutes out of tarps and jumping off the roof. Because we totally did
yeah,
that.
but people don't. I mean, maybe they're not friends
never
on
worked.
Facebook.
It
so
never
that-
worked. Gravity wins on that
No.
one. But now you're just going to call the authorities.
Yeah. Well,
That's
maybe they're
this-
not friends on Facebook, so they don't know how to have a conversation.
Well, it's all this see something, say something mindset
Yeah,
where you're just in this Stasi.
I am-
That's how the
you know.
Gestapo got started.
Well, it's how the Stasi operated. You know, if you pretty much every communist, operates. If your neighbor's committing a crime and you didn't report them, you're just charged with the same crime, even though your neighbor you must know. So because you didn't come forward, so that was how they basically bullied everybody into just ratting everybody out for everything, like walking the dog. It's this see something, say something mindset where it's like maybe it's totally normal for a kid to walk her dog. I mean, just say I don't know. Maybe
But like
that's
how
old fashioned. I don't know.
how I grew up, if I was out in the community, like let's say I was on my block doing something that I shouldn't have been doing, like the neighbors would talk to me almost like a parent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Like
it
get
was
off
just-
my grass.
Yeah, what
Like,
are you doing?
what
Put
are you
the bottle
yeah,
rockets
not
away.
like What
are you
September.
doing?
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore.
Put the explosives away.
It's really weird, dude. I mean, where do you draw the line? Like, my son was out on his bike, and he was doing like I used to do, going really fast, not paying attention, doing dumb stuff. And, dude, he ate it so hard, dude. The whole side of his face was hamburger meat. Like, he kissed the sidewalk and just effed up his face. So, is that my fault because I let him ride a bike?
You'd have to talk to CPS.
No,
You know
we
what's-
don't want to
what-
talk.
This
to
is
CPS,
what
dude.
scares me is if
But where
I
do
have
you
a
know?
feud with you about who knows what,
Oh,
like
yeah.
if I want to
That's all you
get
gotta
you,
do. Make a
and
phone
there's
call.
people in this
Oh,
world.
yeah.
It's
I was
happened
married
to friends of
one
mine.
Yeah.
Happened to friends of mine.
He makes
No,
stuff
there are
up and-
people that will involve the police. Have you ever seen those? I had to do this one day just for my personal sanity. I got on a, you know how you can get on a YouTube tangent.
Yeah.
And I ended up going from abusive police caught on camera to crazy ex-girlfriends caught on camera.
Okay.
And that's where, a lot of these videos are the guys, he's recording it. And you guys know why I identify
Yeah.
with this so much, because he just needs to show the world what, hey, thanks, Jason. See you in an hour, buddy. Because he knows what she's like in private, so there are all these videos of just girls going crazy, and sometimes guys, but it was more typically girls. And there was a common theme throughout almost all of these videos. The girl's in a rage. The guy is breaking up or doing something. He's locked her out of the house, or he's trying to get away from her, and she threatens, "I'm going to call the police. I'm going to say that you hit me." And the thing is about that, and I've got a little experience with this, is you make that accusation, dude,
It's game over, dude.
you're effed.
Yeah, it's game over.
And it doesn't even matter if 90% of the people believe you, because not everyone will. I mean, those are the kind of rumors and they're so destructive. And sometimes your only protection is a recording of when you recorded someone in their natural state. And you can really only just keep it and use it as a defense if the day ever comes where you should need it, which by that time you're now in court. I mean, that's not a good place to be.
No.
But that's all it takes is the accusation. There was the San Francisco linebacker this summer whose girlfriend, he was breaking up with her. She freaked out. She called the police and said, "He's abusing me." He had already had marijuana in his car, so he already had something else on his record, and all of a sudden now the police are involved the second time. He gets suspended by the 49ers. Bad guy in the NFL, and I forgot his name. If you look
Dave's
up,
fantasy football team goes to
well, we just focus on the offense. But so the girl gets up to court, and as this is leading up there, she's like, "Guys, I made it up. I was just frustrated because he was leaving me. He did not do this. He's a good, nice man. He never hit me." And she kept saying that. She even went as far as to say it on the stand, meaning there is now no evidence, no
Ruben.
witnesses, there is nothing.
Yeah, if anything, she committed a crime.
Yet,
Reuben Foster.
thank you, Reuben Foster. Yet Foster, that's why I wanted to remember it, because... So, the prosecutor, nonetheless, wanted to keep prosecuting the case even without her. Because, well, it's Reuben Foster, and this prosecutor is making a name for himself. And so that's what, dude, our system is effed. And all you have
off
to do...
of a plea deal. And so there's something on his record, right? It's a disaster.
Dude, I have a friend whose wife was roofied at a party. She was acting strange. He's like, you only had a couple drinks. Why are you this drunk? She was incoherent, babbling. He tries to get her out. So he takes her out. And on the way, it's raining, and they're on a grassy hill. Not a knoll, but a hill.
Okay.
And on their way down the car, she slips. He's trying to help her in the car, get her home. Neighbor notices this, calls the police. My friend ended up in court. Had to hire a lawyer, everything. Because the way the neighbor saw it, he was trying to force her into the car against her will. It was never, and she didn't go, nothing happened fast enough. They didn't realize until they kept talking about it that there was the potential that she got roofied. So she didn't go in time.
So what was the charge against him, though?
It was domestic. It was domestic violence.
Yeah.
Well,
It's his word against everyone else's.
Yep.
At that point. And if she can't remember, well, she was
I
drunk,
was so mad.
that is what's nasty
about
this. Because when you make that accusation out there, whenever you walk into a party, you feel it. You can feel the whispering. You can feel the eyes. And even for the people that are supporters of you, that maybe believe you because they've known you forever, something like that, it sort of doesn't matter because there's enough in the group that are, uncomfortable that everyone just sort of turns your back. They turn your back on you. And this causes it is so evil. And I even wrote on Facebook this summer about the Reuben Foster story. I'm just like, women that do this, I believe they should go to prison. If the man can go to prison, a false accusation of that very thing, I think should elicit the same term as what the prison sentence would have been for the man. Because that is the type of accusation. It never goes away.
Right, like now you just take his place.
It is a scarlet letter, and what my ex did to me in my hometown, it has destroyed my hometown permanently. And I feel it all. Even when I don't feel it, I wonder if I feel it. Like, for instance, Jay, we were at that checkout counter a month or two ago. I give my name to the prescription lady, and her face suddenly turns into a scowl, which he notices. I didn't really even pick up on it because I guess I'm almost getting used to it.
It was to the point where I asked him, I was like,
Do you know her, dude?
I was like, yeah. I was like, what was that? Like, do you remember me asking you? I was like, what was that about? Because it was obvious there was something. As soon as he said his name, I was like, that was, yeah.
And that is what my hometown is now. It's because my name, there's only one thing lower than someone that harms women. Someone that harms children.
Yeah.
And Betsy couldn't make that claim because she would have had to have involved her kids. But I know her, and she would have, without a doubt. And I think it's one of the most evil things you can do. And if the woman's done it twice, like did it to her prior relationship, I'm surprised that there aren't laws that protect. There was a time where I was actually thinking about making that a cause of mine, is
there's
falsely accused men.
Yeah, I mean, there's falsifying a police report. There's those things, maybe slander. I don't know.
But
it didn't get to a police report.
Yeah,
Right.
It's actually even almost as effective even more effective than a police report because she made it public.
Yeah.
Where there's no jury, there's just the court of public opinion. And dude, the minute you hear that, like if you're at a party and someone leans over and whispers in your ear, "Hey, that's the guy that
beat up his old lady or whatever."
Yeah, he supposedly molested these kids and he's on the child
right.
sex
He says
offender
it's not
list.
true, but whatever.
Guess what, dude? The minute that it's over. Your social life there it's over. It is evil.
Yeah, that's one you can't really even if you're totally exonerated. There's something about that first exposure to the first piece of data that sticks. And it's like, oh, that dude raped his girlfriend, dude. She came back out later and said, she made it all up, but who really knows? I mean, it sticks no matter.
I'm
You're
sure
right,
there are
dude.
still people that think that NFL player did it and just paid her off. I mean, I remember everybody saying it.
It's always going to be attached to his name now,
Yep.
whether he did it or not.
Yep.
And you're right, that's where it gets really nasty. Because, I mean, I got plenty of experience with psychotic women, so I don't want to just come out and be all like, oh, the poor women. Because believe me, they got their share, okay?
Yeah, it was his old cologne. He used
I mean,
to attract them.
Let's face it.
I've dated
most
a
of
few
us lived
girls
through this 4 years ago, right? So I don't want to talk about how women aren't capable because it very well could be, this is how nasty it is. Let's just say, some girl who happens to be a sociopath is interested in you, but you're not interested in her, and as some recourse of action, she accuses you of rape because she's a psycho. This happens.
It absolutely does.
Right? This happens. So it's really her word against yours. And, you better have some really good...
Look, I got lucky.
Really good alibi for that one.
One of the... I started recording conversations with Betsy because I was frankly scared, dude. I mean, if she could have taken my son away, she would have. She tried to. I mean, she sent me 4 waves of lawyer letters spreading. It wasn't just this rumor. It was so crazy that, whatever that saying, where there's fire, there's smoke. And you throw enough shit out there, and just people, well, something must be going on over there.
Of course.
And I remember, because it was the summer before the movie came out. And I wouldn't find this out until a year later. But the first time that I know of, that she first said this was a night we were out to dinner with a few other couples. And I remember immediately. It's like my phone stopped ringing, and everyone's face when I walked into a place, it wasn't the normal, hey, Dave, nice to see you. It was like... It was a look of and dude, I could feel it. And I kept going to her, what is going on? I think we've been blackballed. Do you know what's going on? And she's like, no, it's probably just because you're a conspiracy theorist. And I'm like, no, I've been one of those for 4 years now, and everyone, I'm still friends with everybody. This is new. Well. And then it was a year later I would find out that she had started this rumor, she helped it along a few times, and I never knew about it until... He wasn't a friend. He was not doing me a favor. This guy was a little bit excited about being able to deliver this news, but he's like, Dave, do you beat Betsy? And I'm like, what? I was shocked. And then when he started to fill in the details, it's like someone showing you photographs of your wife cheating on you with your best friend. It's one of those things. You're just like, you are just betrayed. Utter betrayal. And that's like, that's something that exists in our society. I don't know how to solve it. Because it does become a he said, she said.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was lucky because I have her recorded several times saying that she made it up. And I'll use it if I ever need to.
Yeah, you could, like you said, you could bolster the law so that it, prosecutes those as a separate crime that's more severe than $500 and, a couple weeks cleaning up the ditches along the road.
What do you do when it's your own son's mother? Because, to fight the mother, you're going to be harming the kid a little bit.
Maybe indirectly, but
right.
The same could be said for what she was doing.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
So at least you'd have it documented that, you could maybe drop the charges, but at least it would show.
Is that something you would ever share with your child as he grows up?
Only if I was asked about it.
I think.
Otherwise, it's just.
I think you need to. Like something kind of like that's going on with my brother right now, where his children live in Hawaii. My mom was just there, and she said to his baby mama, I guess my ex sister-in-law, that my mom wanted to visit. She's like, I'm going to be in Hawaii. I want to see my grandkids. She was like, no, you can't. My mom was like, are you like, why would you keep my grandkids away from me? Like, I'm getting older. I'm here. Like, I want to see them. You know what I mean? But then, like, so those kids don't know that. So they're going to grow up. And they're going to be like, oh, my father's family didn't care about us. They didn't want to see us. But, like, I've sent her emails like, hey, could you send the kids out for the summer? Like, could we come there and visit them? And nothing. When those kids turn 18 and I find them, I'm gonna give them everything. Just be like, look, this is
that's
like, just so you can see, like we've tried to be,
but that's not
involved in what's happening.
what they consider disparaging remarks. That actually is, it's positive. It's not like what he's saying is you go back and do a report card on their mother.
Yeah, I know what Dave's saying, because in your case, you're going to show these kids, wow, you were really loved a lot more than you thought.
Right.
And
Like we wanted
for
to
my
see
son's case, it would be like
your mom's crazy. That's
the
different.
reason we don't have a family is because,
It's different.
and I don't know if that's ever,
I think
If it ever comes up, like for the way I've dealt with it, I'm not saying I'm right. It's just the way it panned out for me. Is if I was ever asked about specifics and situations that happened, whether it be circumstances around the divorce or whatever. When my daughter got to a certain age, I pretty much openly talked to her about it.
And I
because
think-
she asked.
I think that's the case, man. Like you can't make a puzzle if you don't have all the pieces. You know what I'm saying? You
And that's
can't-
fine.
You just
But you don't want to go and sit little Johnny down when he turns 10 and tell him how his mom's
right.
a psycho.
Absolutely.
Especially when he still lives with mom.
Right.
That's disparaging and not productive whatsoever. Because then you'll end up with, if you keep that up long enough, on one side or the other, you end up with a guy that grows up that'll end up dying for his mother but hates women.
Right.
do we have, are we doing Restream or many cams today?
Many cams through
recording.
OBS.
Do we know how it's working? We're not live streaming anywhere,
No.
We're not
except
live
for to the
streaming anywhere.
caves.
No.
Anything that you say that we can edit out. So it
Okay.
doesn't-
So we're just
Do we want to
recording.
talk protocols, or do you want to take a break and just keep shooting the shit?
I kind of like.
We kinda-
I think we've been having a good conversation.
Yeah, I
say
think so
we-
too.
So we can do however you like, yeah.
How about want to take a break? We'll keep shooting the
that.
shit, and we'll pick up the protocols.
Next week.
Kind of next week is when I see us getting more back into we've had our summer off.
Yeah.
Let's get into it and get serious about it. You're heading out of town pretty soon, right?
Yeah, September 17th.
All right, and we're going to be
2
gone
weeks.
around September 11th.
Okay.
We're going to be in San Francisco.
So most of September for me then is out. So I'll be back towards the end of the month. So 27th, I think.
Okay, so you'll miss a couple shows?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you guys want to
Yeah, let's
take
do
a
it.
little break?
Yeah, do
Yeah.
it.
Go, take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Took a quick little break, and
We'll decide on air.
we're going to try and make a decision here in our effort to be more professional. We'll just decide on air the things we should talk about off air.
How about this? I'll tell you guys something that happened to me today that was kind of interesting. So I've been having car troubles, right? Yeah. I woke up today, and normally I could jump my car and the battery would work, but it was not turning over. Like nothing was coming on, just completely dead. And I was getting like super frustrated with it. I jumped it for like 20 minutes, nothing. I have a battery thing that I hooked up where you plug it in the wall and it charges your battery. Yeah. And like nothing would happen. I tried turning this thing over and over again. So I went back into my apartment, and I was sitting there and I was just thinking about like the past couple of days, me and Howard have been talking about God and his timing, and like how his timing is maybe not what we want it to be, but it is his
Maybe.
timing.
Right.
No, it's definitely not what we want it to be.
You know what I mean? And like, I don't know why I was just thinking about that, and it just kind of like brought me to a good place. And then I just said to myself, I was like, because like I knew I had to come here and do this today, and I have all the cameras, I carry all that with me. So I was like, if I wouldn't be able to come here today, like it would suck. We wouldn't be able to do this show kind of thing. And I was like, God can do this. So I was like, there's nothing for him to start that car. And I even had a thing where it read that my battery was completely empty. There's no juice in my battery. And so I just kind of stayed in that, like, God's got this. Like, if he wanted that car to start, it would start, And I put my car in neutral because I was going to move it. And something told me just, like, and it was weird, but I don't know how to say it, but I stayed in that thought. And something told me just try turning it over, like, one more time. This is probably, like, the 30th time today that I tried to turn this car over. I had nothing hooked up to it. I didn't jump it. Nothing was attached to it. I put the key in, turn it, and it started right up. I looked at the thing. It said that there's nothing in the battery. And it was just like, it's weird, like, that little thing, man, like, all day, I'm like, dude, that's just God being amazing, Like, I looked at the gauge. There's no reason that car should have started.
I think he's trying to tell you something.
that we need to
What
do
do you
this
think he's
show.
trying to tell you?
I think because like for me it was all about this show. To be totally honest with you, because I was like,
I think he's telling you need a new car.
well, he
got a new
told me
battery. He
that.
did get a new battery today.
He
So
told me
Jay
that.
Jay did receive clarification on that message.
You got a new battery? That
Yeah, good to
fix
go.
it up?
Yep, all ready to go.
Really?
Good. Yep.
So it should be good for a couple days.
Right
but,
on.
But that's the thing that was like, I had this hooked up to my battery. There's no juice in it. You know what I mean? Like scientifically, if I looked at it, there's no reason that car should have started. And it turned right over.
Yeah.
And I've tried 30 times just hear that like little click. You know what I mean? You turn all the way, you hear it click when you're you know?
Yeah.
And it just started right up, man. It was the wildest thing that happened to me
That's
today.
cool.
Yeah.
What's cool about that is instead of doing what most people would have done, is just saying, you know what, screw it, call everybody, my car's dead, we're done. I'll just deal with this tomorrow. Car's broke down.
And had it been 8 years ago, I would have gone into a screaming tirade, probably against God himself. Why won't you start my fucking car?
Yeah, I mean, you know, but your attitude stayed positive.
I don't know, it was weird, man, but I was just like, and I don't know why, but I just stood in that just thinking about like his timing and how, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's important.
It was
because,
definitely an interesting morning, I'll say that.
if you stay positive, even
There are
when
a lot of
stuff's going
times
wrong,
where
man.
you guys know that I usually. That's crazy.
That was totally creepy.
I
Anyway,
like the sound.
sorry.
I know I've told you guys this story before. This has happened so many times. It just. It's hard to tell exactly. I mean, I think I know what it is, but my computer will shut off after like an hour if no buttons are touched. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten up at 4 o'clock in the morning because somehow my computer turned on, which can happen. It can wake up out of sleep. But there was one in specific. I mean, this happened a lot of times. I know we talked about one significant one, that Michael Criswell guy.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of having this little crisis of what the heck does God want from me? I'd never heard of the dude. Nothing. I'd never come across him. And all of a sudden, his video just starts playing on my computer at 4 o'clock. And I wake up to it and I watch it. And we ended up making a show out of it. Totally answered. That I've had more questions answered like that than you'd think coincidence would allow for.
Yeah,
But-
that's not. Yeah, it's awfully a lot of curious accidents happen. The part that's important is that you have the outlook on things to where you notice that. You know what I'm saying? You notice it for what it was. Where if you weren't receptive to those kind of things, you'd probably just be upset because it woke you up at 4 in the morning. You'd probably just be like, and shut it off and go back to sleep. You would have missed the whole entire message. But because you kind of get suspicious of everything, and not really in a dangerous paranoid way, but to where you wake up in the middle of the night, your computer starts playing a video. Excuse me. The way your mind works now is you wonder what's this video that's playing and why. Excuse me. Instead of it just being an inconvenience that woke you up at 4 and made you mad, and you shut it off and whatever.
Well, there's a quote in the book, and I want to say it's by Marilyn Ferguson, but I could be completely wrong on that. But the quote is something like this, which is, coincidence is nothing more than our word for the levers and pulleys we don't understand behind the scenes, or something along those lines. Because we attribute a lot of stuff to coincidence. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Or karma. I keep hearing that
Karma,
more and
yeah.
more
Karma's
nowadays.
another
Yeah.
word.
I'm
A
like,
lot of TV shows I notice now, like they use the word universe instead of God.
Oh yeah,
God, yeah.
They pray to the universe.
Pray to the universe so that the universe, and all you'd have to do is substitute the word God, and it would all make sense. But they will not.
They won't say that. No.
So I was thinking about doing something on this, but we've had a lot of like monotonous work going on. So I've had some fun Netflix stuff playing in the background, and I happened to watch the Cheers, the show Cheers, which was on in the 80s and early 90s. And it's funny, but I started making a mental note that on almost every show, like I never once heard him mention the name Jesus Christ. There was one religious-y show, but almost all shows talked about because Carla was very spiritual and she was seancey, and they would always use words like karma in the universe, and I was just like, if I would put together this collage of all the times they've mentioned God versus mentioning essentially his enemy, it's like 100 to 1. You'd think if it was accidental, it'd be about 50-50, but it's...
Yeah.
And now I'm doing the same with Frasier. So I wanted to see if it continued on. Frasier's a little more religious, but not very. I don't know what the point is, or I don't like the word religious, but...
I know what you mean, though.
And I think that's that soft, subliminal... Because I'm sitting there laughing right along with Cheers, laughing at Cliff Clavin, and Carla and Norm are making fun of him because, Carla's dead husband is in the room, and, the spirit guy. So it quietly gets acceptable because it used to be against the law.
Right, yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. From our perspective today, from a biblical perspective, you totally understand why, because that's as big a no-no as you can get.
Yeah.
That is praising other gods, basically.
Yeah, it's doing a couple things. It's communing with the dead as well, which is seems to be a problem. But you're right. That's normal. You could, in fact, it was my 14-year-old who, in class, there was a girl that identified as a witch and was going to write a paper on, her witchcraft. And, it's interesting.
Is it like off the cartoon, like those little witches?
No, this is what she identifies as. She's actually a practicing witch. And was going to do
How old is she?
They're going into high school, middle school.
So do you think she had, was she supported or prompted by her mom or something like that? Or
my guess
do you
is
think she
that,
picked it up on television?
My guess is that this is her, initially probably her way of rebelling against something. Maybe there's a divorce, something that cracked, the foundation of that family and allowed bad stuff in. And
have you guys ever listened to the
know.
testimony of ex-witches? Have you guys ever listened to those?
Yes.
I don't know, maybe.
Because it's very similar. Now, I haven't studied these as deeply as, say, people that claim to have visions of heaven, hell, for instance. But there's some common denominators with the witchcraft stuff. And I've listened to enough of them, and they're not all women. They're not all women. But it seems that the most of the ones I've talked to or that I've listened to are. But almost all of them started off with something innocuous, and it was right around in the early teen years. Some literally, it was we did a Ouija board, and ever since then, I just became a part of it until, you literally keep being progressed along. You do get power because you are interfacing with the spiritual realm, and they will serve you if you summon them and pray to them and do, they'll help you do stuff. There is a certain level of power there, and I never believed it was real. I now know it is.
It's real.
And it was just a very similar story as the girls get caught up in it, sometimes boys, but it's more of a girls thing, and they do it at a young, like the Harry Potter stuff, this ex-witch that came out of it, and she's talking about what goes on behind the scenes at tattoo parlors and, what they do with the blood that's spilled. And, that stuff's used in sacrifices often.
I don't know. If you're bleeding while you're getting a tattoo, just for the record, you need a new artist. Just going to go ahead and say that. I don't know how the whole lot of blood flying around at tattoo parlors, but...
Well, I forgot the woman's name offhand.
Whatever.
The one that I'm specifically thinking about. But they get involved in this, and it keeps progressing and progressing. They get into animal sacrifice. And even at the animal stage, you end up participating. Your first sacrifice is usually not a human. It's an animal. And then they drink that animal's blood. But you get the same high from it. That's where this bloodlust comes from. And it's an addiction. And eventually it gets to the point where you're willing. I know it's just hard to even say or believe, but I believe Ted Gunderson from the FBI, and I do believe that a lot of our missing children end up in stories like this, but they get an addiction to drinking this blood that is filled with these hormones or the fear, whatever, adrenaline.
Yeah,
because
adrenaline.
that is where you get this high, and it's jaw-dropping to listen to these 30-year-old women. Like, some of these interviews were in the 1980s, so they're already 30 years old. So this has been going on a long time, because these women are now talking about things that they started getting involved in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And it's just been growing and growing and growing. And I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know why this just occurred to me, but for some reason, if you guys have ever seen those red stars on houses, it's always a red star, not a blue one or a green one. Maybe
Oh,
there's
you're
a
talking
silver.
about like the stuff they put for decorations outside. That
There's
1, 2, 3,
something
4,
about
5,
that I
6
just-
pointed star, isn't it?
It's a
Or
fiver.
It's a 5, yeah.
But it's the
Yeah, I've seen
same.
those
It's the
around.
same decoration. Like, there's so many things you could do to decorate your house, but it's always a red star. Go look for a blue one. Go look for a white one or a gray one. Yeah. Whatever. But
Better
these
take that
things,
star down when I get home.
if you believe in Russ Disdar's research, we're talking about millions of people in the United States, and they're all part of the demonic army, whether
Well,
they're
I totally understand how this
willing
happens,
or
'cause
naive.
I got caught up in it too. Not to the point where we're sacrificing stuff, but we would have. I mean, especially animals. Who cares? I mean, when it comes to when you're in that mindset. But I actually started pursuing. Thank God I never found the way to it, because I'm sure I would have been doing this. Is we knew of somebody who could basically train people how to conduct astral projection, right? Like out of body
How did
experiences.
you find this person?
Thank God we never actually made contact with this person, but we tried.
But I know. But how did you?
It just
seek
comes
it?
up, you start, when you're around common stuff. Like for us, it was probably music. That was the common denominator at that age, where you just start hanging out, you're talking to people, and before you know it, someone says something, you're like, oh yeah, man, like I know what you're talking about. And then before you know it, you're levitating people, and then the next thing you know, you're looking into ways to cast spells on people, and you start reading books about it, and now you're focusing on things that at the time you don't understand what it is that you're actually doing.
Now, you were going down that road
Yeah.
for a while, and you got pretty deep. I mean, you got some demonic tats on your back. You were reading
Yeah.
Satan's Bible. What was it? Was there a moment where you just realized, holy cow, what am I doing? Or did it happen slowly? I mean, how did you switch off
It's
of
really
that?
gradually. I think I really walked away from all that stuff when my first daughter was born. I walked away from a lot of stuff after that happened. And luckily,
so
I was
this
pretty
goes
young.
back 20
Yeah, it goes back a long time. But that's when I really. I mean, I still kind of liked the same stuff, the same kind of art, the same kind of music. Just really up until almost recently, did I
Wait.
really start listening to different kinds of music. But
When did you, because you burned your satanic Bible, correct?
Yeah, I did.
When did you burn that?
That would have been 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so this starts 20 years ago. We get to the point where you're finally was that the burning of this book? Was that the last, symbolic vestige of
Well,
your?
it was getting it out of my house and I didn't want to just throw it away because someone else might, see that and go, "Oh, cool," and not really know what they're getting into. And I don't know why I kept it. It was just packed away with a bunch of other books, and I always remembered I had it. And somebody, I think it was you, actually told me, like, "Dude, you got to get that out of your house." And I was
Only
like,
because I've heard other
I'm like, why? It's just a book. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, he's totally right. I got to get that out of my
That was
house.
me that suggested?
I'm pretty
Oh,
sure you
interesting.
did
Okay.
tell me that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that came from you.
Where did you get that from?
I bought it at a bookstore.
You can just buy those at a
Barnes
bookstore?
and Noble. That's where I
You
got
can
mine.
buy it. Yeah, you can buy it at a bookstore. You can order it. It's in print. And I mean, what's the what's the bald guy?
Anton LaVey.
Yeah, he's kind of like the circus freak of Satanists, right? He's not really He was just the guy they throw
He's
out
what
there
the
to
media
show.
wants us to think a
Right.
Satanist is.
And that's the book that
just a
You know.
really a non-powerful religious C type of cult leader. That's not at all the people we
wearing
need to
robes
worry
and-
about.
no.
Well, the ones we need to worry about, they do wear robes, but not in public.
Not right.
In public, they are dressed to the nines.
You know, they're your doctor,
expensive jewelry.
your uncle that you don't see off very often, a cousin that you lost touch with. It could be anyone, and it is everyone, as far as every walk of life: military, police, fire, doctors, poor people, rich people. It's the same. You know, they exist, and whether they're aware of it or not. You know, that's the thing. Is at the time, like we kind of knew, but not really. You know what I mean? It's like
we being you and your brother.
no, just the people I was running with.
What is it that you kind of knew?
Well, you know, you get the whole Hail Satan stuff as far as, you know, but it's more of Howard can kind of maybe, it's more tongue-in-cheek than,
Yeah.
you're kind of goofing around.
Yeah, because you
Yeah,
don't.
you
don't take it seriously,
I never
right?
got
You
that
do,
far
but
because I
it's-
didn't take it seriously.
You can't take it that serious if you don't really understand what it is you're talking about.
I think that's one reason I had such a hard time putting all of this together with, wow, this is a spiritual war. Because going into this, I think I've said before, I was a just-in-case prayer. You know, just in case,
Sure.
help me win the lottery so I can get my new shiny car or something like that. So I never really took it very literally. Like God, it's in a way God was very far. There's a nebulous impression of a superior being somewhere that really has nothing to. And we pray to whoever we pray to, not because we really believe they exist, but it's just a way for us to do some kind of self-cleansing or self-evolving or actualization or whatever. And it was about the 8th or 9th person saying, no, we praise Lucifer. And this was the guy, and he'd said it. He was like, demons materialize in front of us, literally. And the first several guys I'd listened to, I'm just like, I had my own, and it finally hit me, oh my gosh. If what these guys are saying is true, the whole thing makes sense. The devil is real. And you really do praise him. Because I'm like, why would the most powerful people in the world, you've got everything, you got it made. Why would you get aligned with Satan? Why would you ruin your existence by praising this?
Yeah. And some people don't really realize that's what they're doing. Like they kind of do, but not really. It's hard to really explain it. So if you're getting into like seances and say communicating with the dead, for an example, that's probably very common. People try to do. Say, I talk to my grandma or whatever.
And you, by the way, I'll say this again. You're not talking to your grandma. You're just talking to, yes,
something.
It is a spiritual entity, but it's not your grandmother's soul. It's just a demon that's
Right.
been around and knew your grandmother and knows your family secrets. And
Right.
they hang around groups. They hang around families for eons.
Of course. And that's why it's so dangerous. But to the people in the room, you might actually be talking to grandma. Like, you don't really know. Like, you're talking to a dead person. Like, that's what you think you know. But you don't really know what you're talking to. Because if you did, you would have left as soon as someone said, we're doing this. It's like, before I wouldn't even have balked at, people reading crystals or tarot cards or, astrology or... Like, I was in that stuff. Like, I, studied it and believed it and saw the truth in it because, it's pretty easy to make that seem true. Whereas now, if I were to say some people were having a barbecue or something, a party invited us, and we went. We being, my wife and I, if we got in there and, have a glass of wine, we're hanging out, whatever, and then someone goes, okay, it's time, and they bust out the Ouija board and tarot cards, guess who's out of there now? We're gone, dude. We're like, sorry, guys, we can't even be anywhere near this stuff. I mean, I would probably pray on my way out the door. And that's the difference. The difference now, whereas before, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll at least watch. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really know. Now I understand. You don't even want to be. Those are literally openings. They're tears in the veil where things can get through. I mean, anything like that, which is why they use trauma so much. crack people's personality to insert these things.
They do.
because
They've got that down
they
to a
f-
science.
they
It's
feed 'em.
trauma before the age of 4, and that's where you get your multiple personalities, which
Yeah.
I'm not even sure are multiple personalities as much as you've created a little home for a demon to take over
Sometimes
with
multiple.
their personality.
Yeah, sometimes many different ones. That,
Exactly.
so I can see how it's very easy, especially how mainstream, and even now, with my view on things, people will bring up Harry Potter movies and how dangerous they are. And even still, some part of me kind of goes, really, dude? I mean, they're movies, really. But I kind of can...
Thing is, you don't know how dangerous they are until you die.
Well, it's not that. I think what it is it's the... Because watching that movie is not going to erase your salvation. That's ridiculous. However...
It desensitizes you to the dark side of the spiritual world, and
That's
you get a little
kinda-
more comfortable with it being a part of your regular...
If you're not already grounded. Like, I could watch those movies for entertainment. I get it. It's fake. It's a movie. Magic wands and the whole thing. They kind of cinematize, witchcraft and make it seem like this fun, happy... You know what I mean?
Well, that's what
Everything's-
Bewitched did.
Right.
But if you read the reviews of Bewitched when it was coming out, this was a very controversial show because they're going to have a witch,
Yeah.
a demonic woman,
Yeah, a genie.
on the main.
necessarily.
Yeah, and Genie comes out that year, and these were some of the most popular television shows
Right.
in the '60s.
Right.
And that's the ones that our parents watched.
But
And
that's
then-
how you can get, man. It's so easy to get because once you see results once, even if it's very minor, then it's like, well, hey, you can do this, and you start gaining the trust of people just by hanging out and being there and not being a threat, right? You're basically sponging in all this stuff, and that's what they prey on. So if you're looking to learn, which I've always been eager to learn, unfortunately, I wasn't always eager to learn good things, but I was always looking for some education, something new, something. I was always really adventurous. So when you start realizing that, you're seeing stuff happen that really shouldn't be happening, and you're making that stuff happen, it becomes where now it's a pursuit. Because when you hear of people that actually can astral project and have documentable out-of-body experiences,
Now, when
that's
the
awesome.
regular world says things like astral projection, you get the eye roll from just the stupid sheep. But our military actually has put billions of dollars into these astral projection programs, and they get real results.
Well,
Like this
even-
is you're not going to see this in USA Today, but this is public information.
Right, but even people that accept astral projection, right, remote viewing is another word
Edgar
for it.
Casey used to do it. He was
Well,
famous for it.
Even people that don't reject it, right? They chalk it up to some advanced form of, say, ESP or something other than what it is, which is it's a demonic practice. It's dangerous because once you do that, then it's like you opened up the garage door a little bit bigger. You can fit 2 cars in there now, and then before you know it, you've expanded to a 4-car garage, and then pretty soon you got a full-blown parking garage downtown full of cars, and you're completely lost. You're now in it. You get to a certain point where, I think you probably can't really get out unless you completely sever. Because sometimes, people will come after you, right? Now you're
that's
a threat,
what, and that was another common denominator with these ex-witches. Threatened, like their life gets threatened for
Sure.
leaving, and I'm sure many of them lose their life, which is not going to be on the news, but the scuttlebutt in the coven circles is that XYZ got sacrificed for leaving, and guess what the message is now to everyone still in the coven?
Well, you can't leave.
You can't effing leave.
Yeah, you can't leave.
Period.
And that's
And if you
like,
talk about it,
well, they've come up with an interesting. So I think you said Wiccan not too long ago.
Yeah.
Remember when that? I guess it was probably in the '90s when we were.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
it really started coming out that there's this. There's this. I guess we call it religion that's called Wiccan, and they're witches, but they're not like witches like. They worship nature, right? And wind, fire, earth, water, that stuff. It's almost like a cover to kind of do what Harry Potter movies did. And what, illusionists do. And, it's magic, but
It's almost like the
Not
Force.
really,
Like
you know.
there's this thing that, and you can either use it for good or bad, the light side or the dark side. It's kind of what Wiccan is, right? But they're
Well,
like, they
it's-
claim to use it for light.
Yeah, it's more like it's been presented as just another religion, like Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam,
Basically,
whatever. But it's
All
not.
religions, other than if there's a religion, would be the religion of reading the Bible? What would that be called? Of being a Bible believer? Would you call that a Christian? Because there's
well,
a lot
no.
of there's a lot of like self-labeled Christians that really are not Christians by this book's definition.
Yeah, if you believe the Bible, then I recognize the Bible as one book. I know we have Old Testament, New Testament, but it's clearly one book, just connected by a lot of time in between. But Jews believe the Bible.
well,
they're not-
so do Muslims.
They're not Christians, right? So, well, they believe most of the Bible.
Well, they
At
believe
least-
the Old Testament, basically.
Yeah,
at
and I don't
least
know
the,
if they
the
modified it.
Pentateuch, the first 5.
You know, they may have modified that because, you know, it was imperfect and corrupted. That was the whole purpose for writing the Quran in the first place.
Was there a day that you could feel that you're? Let me ask you guys this: we've all read that we can let the Holy Spirit into our life, right?
Yeah.
Now, does he come in, and as he comes in, do the bad spirits get pushed away, or are they now sharing space in you? Because I want you to tell your story because it's so much more meaningful. But I'll lead into it with a story I had of a friend who was a friend, because this is one of the things that happens is you're going to change your group of friends, by the way.
Yep.
And she had dream catchers all over her house. She was always very in tune with her spirit guides, and she was certain that they were there to protect her. And as I was discovering this stuff, I'm just like, Deborah, these things are not there to protect you. They're there to make you think you're okay, but when the day comes, you are not protected whatsoever. And she just wouldn't believe me, and I felt uncomfortable being in there around her to the point where I just didn't like visiting her. I mean, we just don't hang out that much anymore. But I know you had an experience like that at a concert where all of a sudden.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that.
Tell
So
us
you just
tell
brought
us
it
a
up.
little bit about that, and tell us what you think was going on with your spirit inside of you.
Well, you know, there was a lot of factors there, but it was a concert that we bought tickets for previous to my brother getting killed. So we were all it
Who
was like
was-
the regular
Who was the show?
Slayer.
Oh,
And we saw Slayer every single time they were
Yeah.
in Detroit.
So you buy tickets. Your brother's supposed to go to the show,
And he
but your
obviously-
brother's about to be murdered. You don't know that, but the
Yeah.
concert's after. How much further after his death was this concert?
2 months.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 months. So a good buddy of ours, you know, he went instead with the ticket, and that was all fine and good. I mean, it was good to hang out with all of them. You know, it was being that we're all, you know, married, kids, careers, etc. We don't hang out much, so these concerts were kind of our way to get together and hang out, have a couple beers, whatever, hang out. So everything was cool. The concert was actually really good, and then I just remember. It just the the whole situation changed from watching a band I've seen dozens of times to actually almost looking at something through sorry, I'm losing my voice. Looking at something through a microscope, right? Where I was, instead of being at the concert, I was now observing the concert. It was weird. And the things they're saying, the stuff that's on stage, I just had this feeling, something just told me, dude, you just need to get out of here. You just got to go. And at
But
first
it wasn't
like
it wasn't just like some quiet voice in your head saying, "Hey, why don't you go?" I mean, it was
no,
a
it was
little
panic.
more-
I actually had to run out of there because I started having this weird panic attack, right? And I thought maybe, you know what, maybe it's PTSD from the trauma from what happened to my brother and being, you know, so, you know, close to the situation. But it really wasn't, because nothing like that ever happened before or since that extreme. So
Do you still listen to Slayer?
actually, no. If it's on, like, if let's say I go fishing with my buddy and he's got it on his Bluetooth, like, it's fine. It doesn't. I'm not like, hey, turn that off, you know, or devil's music. But since I had a conversation with Jay in April, his reaction to he's like, what kind of music do you listen to? I'm like, mostly metal. His reaction to that answer was a reaction I've never got before in my adult life. He was like, "You still listen to metal?" Almost kind of like ripping on me, and I'm like, "Well, yeah. Why don't you? Like everybody. I mean, that is my music." And he's like, "Nah, man." He's like, that stuff, it influences you. I'm like, "Come on, dude. It's music. It doesn't." He's like, "Oh, but it does, though." And I was like, "I don't know, dude. I like all kinds of stuff, so I can listen to just about anything."
There's a big difference if you're aware of what's going on and you listen to something versus not. Because I could listen to a song about being bad, going out and womanizing whatever, and it would get me pumped up to go out and do.
It's weird.
It
dude.
does influence.
It's
ya.
weird. I had to kind of come to grips with it, and luckily, and again, I don't despise it. I mean, it's still going to be at the core a big part of my life, right? But now when I get in the car, and it's been months now actually since then, my go-to music, which it was kind of anyway for a lot of things, is reggae, dude. I listen to reggae constantly.
Yeah, man.
There it is. You know what's funny though? Like, I don't know how it is now, but when I was in high school, I could walk down the hall and I could look at a person and tell what kind of music they listen to. Absolutely, I'd be like, I bet you I can name his top 5 bands right now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to, hip hop too. I mean, I listen to a lot, especially when I paint or something. I don't ever listen to metal when I paint because just doesn't fit. But reggae is where it started, really. I started listening to reggae when I was doing art, and now it's stuck. I just listen to the reggae station all the time.
Yeah, you can't be in a bad mood and listen to reggae, man.
Dude, I love
There's
reggae.
a
And you know what?
reggae station?
On satellite, dude.
In
It's
Detroit?
awesome.
Oh, okay.
It's so awesome. And if you listen to the words, which I all the years partying, listening to Bob Marley and
Right,
Peter
right.
Tosh and these guys, just because it was talking about weed,
I know, great party music.
But you don't really listen to the lyrics. And when you really pay attention to the lyrics of reggae music, other than the whole black supremacy thing they got going on in the Rastafarian faith and the fact they think this emperor of Ethiopia was actually the Messiah, they're confused on a couple things. I'll give them that. But other than that, dude, they got it figured out. Just
Right.
listen to the lyrics. I mean, they know what's up when it comes to the whole Babylon versus Israel and the whole I mean, they got it nailed down tight, and that's all they sing
But you
about.
got to get that grassroots because now reggae is starting to turn into like almost like what you hear on our radio, but just
That's
reggae.
more R&B now, and some of it's cool. I like some of the mixed stuff, but you're right. You got to get to the real roots, which is my favorite stuff, roots reggae. But that's when you get into the lyrics that are deep, man. What, we got a visitor at the door?
Probably next show, guys. Next show, girl. Hi. So, Howard, how about you, man? What's the why don't you share a progress report with us on how you're doing with?
Oh, failing at everything.
Not at everything. That's defeatist. You got to be doing something, right? You're here.
No, that's true.
Yeah, you're here.
That's true.
Do you guys go through periods where you feel like I'm in a good place right now with God, and then go through other periods where you're like, dude,
Absolutely.
I feel like I
Monthly.
haven't talked to the dude.
Monthly.
I'm
Yeah.
You know what? What does it say? What does it say in the Bible? Like when you were asking about the Holy Spirit, it says that it kicks a demon out, but then that demon goes and gets more powerful demons and comes back.
Yeah.
7 of them, actually.
Man,
When does that process end? Because do you kick out the 7, then get 49?
Well, the thing about it, and that's what we're kind of leading into. You asked, does it? I think that once you actually become a believer, and it's not just because your parents and because you're raised that way. When you really come to the conclusion that not only is this stuff real, but it affects every second of your life, and everyone's life around you, whether they know it or not. The dynamic with the Holy Spirit, I think Derek Prince is the one so far that explains this the best, because he's at least open-minded to the fact that just because you are a believing Christian, some people have this weird idea that they're somehow immune to darkness at all. And now possession, right, demonic possession, cannot happen with a believer. It
a
cannot.
true believer, right?
True believer cannot be possessed.
But a true believer, I mean, the term in these circles they prefer to use is demonized.
Well, the reason they prefer that is because that's the actual word that's used in the Bible. They don't use the word possession. It's
Okay.
mistranslated. It's actually demonized is more accurate. So that just means And the way he kind of put it, I like this the best, and it could just be because I like the explanation, but it makes a lot of sense. If you treat yourself as a city, right, you appoint Jesus Christ as the mayor of the city, no doubt. But there's areas of the city that are not under his
still have a
full
slum
control,
district,
right?
let's
So you know what I'm
just say.
saying? And it's not trying to minimize.
My south side is large.
Well, it's not minimizing God's power by any means. It's actually just explaining our weakness, right? So how not perfect we are. You can be, I mean, I think that there's always constantly areas we could work on. I mean, whether it's addiction or it's just a negative attitude or anything. Any of these compulsory behaviors can be chalked up to demons. And that could be spreading gossip. It could be something like that. It could be gambling. It could be alcoholism, being a drug addict, beating your wife, or whatever it is. These things, you can still, it doesn't mean you don't believe in God anymore, right? You might still hold fast. This is the truth of the world, and this is what I believe, but yet still mess up. That's the whole idea behind grace. So, you know, that otherwise you just zap you, oh, you're imperfect, and just poof, you're gone. We'd all be gone if that was the case.
Yeah, I'm definitely a believer, but I also know I do things that let the bad guys, and I'm aware of it. Like, I know they float around me from time
I think
to
they float
time.
around everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a matter of, sometimes, we may do something, we don't realize it because it may be just subtle, like, it's no big deal. But really it is a big deal because even if it's just something as minor, and you never be able to put these things together and draw a line and say, well, this is the cause and this is the effect. But from a philosophical standpoint, you could say that, let's say, I'm, for an example, this didn't happen, but just for an example, I'm married. Let's say I spent all night last night watching porn and gambling on some online poker site or whatever.
Were we hanging out last night?
No, we weren't. But and then regret it, whatever afterwards. But the fact is that even though I did that, let's just say, I'm never going to do that again. How stupid, right? It's just stupid, and mean it. That may have let something in that will cause some argument or something later that day. It could be that minor. But as these things add up in your life, right, a steady drip fills the bucket. Pretty soon the bucket's full, and now you think, what is going on around me? When really, if you were able to make a roadmap of all these instances, you'd realize that much of it's your fault.
Well put, Dave.
Right?
Pretty much. We should end with that.
Okay.
That's a great send
You guys
off.
want to
We're
end on a
about
prayer?
out of time.
Let's end on a prayer.
You
You
got to
guys wanna
break
do that?
down.
Do
Sure.
it.
You lead us off, brother.
Me?
Yep.
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for getting us here safe, and hopefully the show was to your liking, and get us home safe and provide us with the guidance we need to go forward to keep the message strong. In Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesus'
Amen.
name, amen.
Okay, well, we will be back next week.